Almighty, and until in support of the claim there is not practical evidence and a self-reformation to accompany it. This is why often Hazur says that the promised Messiah alayhi salam says there should be a practical change in support of the claim and evidence for this. That is, the practical transformation should be clearly demonstrated, and this should be evident, and this will be proof of this change. The promised Messiah alayhi salam states that this is why often I am utterly shocked out of this grief. The promised Messiah, peace be upon him, states that Allah is not satisfied with mere claims alone until it is supported with real testimony, and until there is not support for the claim with practical reformation, practical evidence and reformation of the heart. This is why I am often utterly shocked out of this grief. Hazur says, thus the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, he desires practical evidence from us. So if we analyze our own condition, we could account for ourselves in a much better way. Sometimes when others admonish us, it irritates us. Or at times, by admonishing others, it leads to a burgeoning ego. However, the stipulation that has been placed here is that if you want to assess yourselves, you must always keep in mind that Allah the Almighty is watching me at every single moment, and that I have made a pledge of allegiance which I am bound by, and which to abide by is my obligation. If a person does this, then he will be able to account for himself in a much better way. An Ahmadi, however weak he may be, he still has some aspects of righteousness within him. When this righteousness begins to sprout, then it flourishes from within him. Therefore, every single person needs to keep this piety alive with the water of his pious deeds. He needs to freshen this. He needs to realize the deep concern and anguish of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. He who appreciates this, his condition transformed from that of a dry branch into a flourishing and green branch. Numerous people write letters to me, and they are filled with a burning desire that pious reformation comes within us, that the promised Messiah alayhi salam desired to see inculcated within them. So whoever tries to bring about this realization and ask for Allah's succor and help, then Allah, who is more loving and compassionate to his people than a mother, he runs to a person who comes towards him and he embraces him. Such people's lives are entirely reformed. Therefore, Allah the Almighty has given us a golden opportunity to augment and reform our life in this world and the next. If we do not properly derive benefit from this, then it will be our own great misfortune. The shock and deep anguish expressed by the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam, it was at that time when there were those companions of his who were directly living amongst him and benefiting from his guidance. When we read and hear about the lofty examples, we become envious with regard to the revolutions that they brought within their own lives. Despite this, look at the grief and pain of the promised Messiah, peace be upon him. Look at the level of his taqwa, his righteousness and fear of Allah, which he expected and desired his followers to reach. That even at that time, he stayed seeing the condition of just a few. That I am utterly shocked out of this grief. So look how much our condition of weakness causes shock. although the promised Messiah alayhi salam is not physically present amongst us in the same way. However, Allah the Almighty can manifest our state to him. That what the condition is of which companions, descendants, and the progeny of his dear ones and his holy people. Those people at the time of the promised Messiah alayhi salam saved themselves from an impure environment and for the sake of attaining Allah's pleasure left their whole lives and worlds and attached themselves to the mantle of the Messiah, and they spent their entire lives adhering to the pledge that they would always give precedence to their faith over the world. The religious condition of some of these descendants and children has weakened, and some are not concerned at all about this. Therefore, in order to reform ourselves and safeguard our own condition, we need to look into the lives of the companions with this intention, that there should be a purpose before us that we strive to fulfill. We should reflect on the various aspects of their life. We need to find out the reason why they took the bet, the Pledge of Allegiance. It is only then when we will be moving towards a destination and a proper objective, and we will be those who fulfill their wishes and their desires. A few days passed when the son of a very holy person, Abdul Mughni Khan Sahib, his son was telling me about him, that Maulvi Sahib has studied BSc in chemistry from Aligarh University. In those days, there were normally few Muslims studying science. So the Vice Chancellor said that this is a good subject that you have taken and you have achieved a distinction. And so we offer you a job in the university and you would be able to continue your studies further. His father had obtained a recommendation from an English friend. At that time, the British government ruled India. So he had also offered him a good job. Then that person received the advice that he was intelligent, so that by giving the exam in the Indian Civil Service, he would be able to join it. Khan Sahib in those days was in Qadian. It was the era of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II, may Allah be pleased with him. He informed him of the details of what had passed and said, Hazur, I do not want any part of materialism or worldly pursuits. I could stay in Qadian, and even if I received work to sweep the streets and alleys of Qadian, I would give it preference over these high job offers. So there were such holy and noble people at the time as well, who later received the beneficence and blessings from the companions as well. So after this, Khan Sahib was made a science teacher in the school, after which he was appointed Nazir Baitul Mal. Perhaps he was the very first Nazir Baitul Mal. Anyhow, the holy people of old, and in particular the companions of the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, they were those who excelled others in righteousness and piety. However, when the condition of a few of them was weak, and the promised Messiah alayhi salam observed this weakness, he says, it utterly shocks me to the heart. Hazur says, so therefore there is a dire need for us to examine our own conditions. And if we realize who we are the descendants of, and after accepting Ahmadiyyat, what pious reformations did these holy and saintly people bring about within themselves? So if we deeply reflect on this, and if we pledge that we will not discredit the name of our saints of the past, then this means of reformation will raise our level of taqwa in a most excellent manner. And it will prompt and attract us towards carrying out righteous deeds. And this is the sign of living nations. that they do not allow the values and traditions of the people of old to die away. They continue to increase their rank and status. New converts also enter the Jamaat with a fresh spirit and zeal. When they see the lofty status of the people of the past, then a new spirit of excelling one another is also infused. And the level of piety goes on increasing on a national level. Therefore, when we make the claim that after accepting the promised Messiah, peace be upon him, we would reform our condition and that it would bring about a revolution in the world, then we need to analyze ourselves on a permanent basis. But you will not only need to assess your own condition, you will also have to analyze the condition of your wives and children. The promised Messiah ﷺ has written that a wife is most aware of her husband's words and deeds and all his secrets. If the man is on the right path, then so too will the woman be. Otherwise, she will reveal his actions to him. That what are you trying to reform me? First reform yourself. Therefore, for the reformation of women, it is necessary that men also bring about pious reformation within themselves. We should always remember that if a woman is reformed, then it guarantees the reformation of the future generations. So, in order to infuse pious reformation in the future generations and to ensure they remain firmly rooted on their religion, then men most of all need to pay attention to their own condition. The example of the men and the women, the father and the mother, of the husband and the wife, it will remind the children to remain on the right path, and that their real objective is not to drown in the world or in materialism. Rather, their real purport is to attain the pleasure of Almighty Allah. Here I would like to clarify a certain matter, that nobody